On July 12, 1969, Neil Armstrong stepped off the Apollo 11 spacecraft onto the moon, making him the first ever human being to step foot on the lunar surface. While this event had been televised and was part of a much larger political space race happening at the time, many skeptics questioned whether or not the moon landing actually ever happened. Welcome to Let's Be Briefed. I'm Sydney,
I'm Sarah.
and this week we'll be discussing the moon landing.
Nice. I feel like this might be the most divisive or the one that makes the people the most angry.
I know, but I I'm just gonna get this right out of the way. I 100% think they faked it.
I was also gonna say they faked it at the time. Like, we could have landed on the moon, but maybe not this
When we
particular
said we
day.
did, yeah.
Because
And
we wanted to win.
I know. And this was the first conspiracy theory I ever got into. When I was in eighth grade English, we had to do debates, and we debated the moon landing, and I got stuck
Oh.
with the moon landing faked side of the debate, and I've been into it ever since.
Hmm. That's good. In eighth grade, I did, or no, this was ninth grade, I think, or 10th, I don't know, one of the grades. I did, should marijuana be legal?
Oh,
That was obviously rough.
this is the one that people say some people think the moon landing was fake, but then I'm like, why wouldn't they fake it?
All right, to win. I mean, some people
Right.
think the moon's not even real, so.
Right. Flat Earth, you can be upset about flat Earth, but do not be upset about people thinking the moon landing is faked, because they had
Right.
every reason.
Yeah,
Think
and they've
about
done
all the other
worse.
stuff they did. Yeah, they've done
Right.
so much worse.
Yeah, this would be easy to fake.
Easy to fake
So.
and not really much consequence. It's not like,
Right. It's not like they killed anyone this time.
yeah, they
So.
didn't even have to kill anyone, and they've done that a lot.
Right.
So,
Well, we could get into the evidence.
yeah, yeah, okay. So I guess I wanted to start off just by running through like the significance of the moon landing and like kind of what happened, because that will be, I don't know, just as I don't know why I'm still talking. Just before we get into any conspiracies, Apollo 11 was the American spacecraft that first landed humans on the moon. The commander was Neil Armstrong, and then the lunar module pilot was Buzz Aldrin. He landed the Apollo lunar module Eagle on July 20th, 1969. And then Armstrong stepped foot on the moon and became the first person to step foot on the moon 6 hours and 39 minutes later on July 21st.
Oh,
Aldrin joined him 19 minutes later, and they spent about 2 hours and 15 minutes together exploring the site that they named Tranquility Base upon landing. Which, yeah, of course it's fucking tranquil. It's space.
right. No sound at all and barren.
Right. Um, Armstrong and Aldrin collected 47 pounds of lunar material to bring back to Earth, and
Wow.
pilot Michael Collins flew the command module Columbia into the lunar orbit, and they were on the moon's surface for 21 hours and 36 minutes before they like lifted off to rejoin Columbia. So like there was like the command module, and then the little lunar rover went down,
Yeah.
and the Michael Collins stayed off.
Okay. Man, that would be kind of like they get to go be on the surface
Yeah,
and
I'd
I
be
gotta
pissed if
stay
I had to
here.
stay behind. Yeah.
Right.
Um, so Apollo 11 was launched by a Saturn V rocket from Kennedy Space Center on Merritt Island, Florida on July 16th. And it was the fifth crewed mission of NASA's Apollo program. So how the fuck did they get to Apollo 11 if this was only number 5?
Because it says the fifth crewed one, so maybe the
Oh,
other ones
crewed.
were
Okay,
unmanned.
okay. Yeah, you're right. The Apollo spacecraft had 3 parts: a command module with a cabin for the 3 astronauts, and then that was the only part that returned to Earth. And then it had a service module which supported the command module with propulsion, electrical power, oxygen, and water. And then the lunar module that had 2 stages: a descent stage for landing on the moon and an ascent stage to place the astronauts back into lunar orbit where the command module was. And after being sent to the moon by the Saturn V's third stage, the astronauts separated from the spacecraft separated the spacecraft from the rocket and traveled for 3 days until they hit the lunar orbit.
Oh wow, just 3 days just floating.
I know, it took the Donner Party.
But
The Donner
faster.
Party like 6 months, but they got to the moon
In 3
in 3
days.
days.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
So then Armstrong and Aldrin moved onto Eagle and landed that in the Sea of Tranquility on July 20th.
The Sea of Tranquility? I didn't
Yeah,
know.
I guess that's... I don't know why they're calling it a sea, because there's no fucking water, but...
Right. Huh.
And then they eventually rejoined the command module. And basically... And then from there, they returned to Earth on July 24th after 8 days in space. So literally, they went to Earth and back, or to the moon and back in 8 days.
Right. That would be cool.
Yeah. And Armstrong's first step onto the lunar surface was broadcasted on live TV to the world. And he, obviously, we all know, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, but that was misquoted because he really said one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. And honestly, that version makes more sense.
Right. Yeah, he's talking about himself, not all of for man.
Yeah.
Because mankind's already like
Man.
that sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And Apollo 11 also effectively proved the U.S. victory in the space race to demonstrate, like, superiority in spaceflight by fulfilling a national goal proposed in 1961 by John F. Kennedy. He said, before the decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. Like, that was his, like, goal.
Wow. Yeah, so they did it the last year. Or does 70 count? No. 70 would be a new decade.
Yeah, they were, like, really close to
like
not
6
hitting
months-ish. Yeah.
it.
Right.
That really seems like a very good reason to fake it to me. Like, just that alone. Like,
right. Yeah, he said
said
that.
we're gonna do this.
Right. Yeah, that would be a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And in the late, like, 50s and 60s, the United States was in the Cold War. I don't know why I said 50s and early 60s, because it's like, didn't the Cold War not end until, like, 1990 when the Soviet Union fell?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe after the 60s it was like the Cold War. Like,
yeah,
less
it wasn't
much,
such a...
but still.
Yeah. Um, like, obviously this was like a rivalry with the Soviet Union. On October 4th, 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, which was the first artificial satellite.
Oh.
Yeah, so they started it.
Right.
And then this, like, it freaked out the whole world because they're like, oh shit, like, they're in space.
Yeah.
And it also demonstrated that they had the capability to deliver nuclear weapons over, like, intercontinental distances, and basically, like, at that point kind of said we're better than the US. Like,
Right.
look what we can do.
Right. Yeah, that would be scary because we can't do that.
Yeah. Right.
And we didn't know they were working on that. Like,
Right.
it came as a complete surprise.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be scary.
And then they're like, oh shit, we need to go to space. Like, we need to catch up.
Right.
And then we have to do it better.
Right.
So
Hurt our ego, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, like, started the Sputnik crisis and triggered the space race to prove which superpower would achieve superior spaceflight capability. President Dwight D. Eisenhower responded to the Sputnik challenge by creating NASA and initiated Project Mercury, which aimed to launch a man into Earth orbit. But then on April 12th, 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, I fucking can't say his name.
Gagarin?
Yeah, Gagarin.
I guess.
Became the first person in space. So they beat us twice.
Yeah, they beat us twice.
And the first to orbit the Earth. Yeah.
That's not good.
I know. And then a month later, we were only a month behind. On May 5th, 1961, Alan Shepard became the first American in space, and he had a 15-minute suborbital journey. And after being recovered from the Atlantic Ocean, he received a phone call from Eisenhower's successor, John F. Kennedy. And since the Soviet Union had higher lift capacity launch vehicles, Kennedy chose, among options presented by NASA, a challenge beyond the capacity of the existing generation of rocketry, so that the US and Soviet Union would be starting from a position of equality. And a crewed mission to the moon would, like, serve that purpose. So
we're really behind, I think.
Yeah, like, I didn't even know it was this bad.
Right.
The initial crew assignment was Neil Armstrong, command module pilot Jim Lovell, and lunar modular pilot Buzz Aldrin on the backup crew. For Apollo 9 was officially announced on November 20th, 1967. Lovell and Aldrin had previously flown together as the crew of Gemini 12, but due to design malfunctions and manufacturing delays in the lunar module, Apollo 8 and 9 swapped prime and backup crews, and Armstrong's crew became the backup crew for Apollo 8. And based on the normal rotation scheme, Armstrong was then expected to command Apollo 11.
Oh.
And I believe there was also a part in here, I don't know where it went, but they had to switch out Lovell for the other guy. What was his name?
Oh, the guy that stayed behind.
Yeah, Michael Collins, because he had, where did that go? I had it in here. They had to swap him out because he had a leg thing, and Lovell was, like, supposed to be on a different one, and then they swapped, so then he got swapped in or something like that. So now we'll get into reasons people think that the moon landing is fake.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll kind of debunk them, but really just know that, like, I think it was faked.